10 ancient Greek inventions and discoveries still used today. Many inventions and discoveries can be traced back to ancient Greece, although many of them have been improved and changed by later generations. The ancient Greeks were leaders in the field of science because of what they learned about astronomy, geography and math. Did you know though, that many useful inventions that are still used today have their roots in ancient Greece? Yes, the Greeks did it first, and they did it better. Today, we'll talk about 10 Greek inventions and discoveries that are still used today. Alarm clock. Do you or someone in your family set an alarm to wake up every morning? If so, this piece of technology came from the Greeks, but the first alarms were very different from what we use today. Ctesibius, a Hellenistic engineer and inventor, put a dial and a pointer on his clepsydras, or water clock, to show the time. He also added a complicated alarm system that made pebbles fall on a gong, or blew a trumpet by forcing bell jars down into water and blowing compressed air through a beating reed at set times. Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, was known to set an alarm clock to wake him up for his early morning lectures. Cartography. What would you use to find your way back home if you were lost? You might be thinking of Google Maps, a GPS system, or a simple map. In either case, the Greeks were the first people to think of making maps of the world for travel, information, and getting around. One of the first people to make a map of the whole world was Anaximander. Anaximander is mentioned in Aristotle's writing. Aristotle called him a student of Thales' physical school of thought. Anaximander showed all of the places where people lived. Iona was in the middle of the map, which was in the form of a tablet. Its eastern edge was the Caspian Sea, and western edge was the Pillars of Hercules. Middle Europe is on the north side of the map, and Ethiopia and the Nile are on the south. Anaximander made a lot of important contributions to cartography and geography, and his map of the world was a great accomplishment for the time. Sinks with running water and showers. Yes, the Greeks were the first people to have a way for water to flow freely so that you could wash both hands at the same time. The ancient Greeks cared a lot about cleanliness and bathed in oil and clay to keep themselves clean. There were also steam rooms. It makes sense that the first automated sink with running water came from Greece. They were also the first to have showers and a good way to get rid of waste. The complex water draining system was run by aqueducts and sewage systems made of lead pipes. Water was pumped into and out of large communal shower rooms like those found at Pergamum. The crane. Cranes are the best way to move heavy things around when constructing a building or moving supplies from one place to another. We can't imagine how construction would work without cranes now. But did you know when it was made and by whom? Archaeologists have found cranes from the late 6th century BC in ancient Greece. This is another important ancient Greek invention. The Parthenon is one of the best examples of a crane's work in ancient Greece. It was built with blocks of marble that were so big that only cranes could move them. The Egyptians and Assyrians used human labour, often at the cost of human lives, to move and stack their building materials. The ancient Greeks, on the other hand, came up with the crane as a highly advanced way to build. Automatic doors. Automatic doors are another Greek idea that we still use even though we don't know where it came from. Of course, the first automatic door was not powered by electricity, but by steam. Heron of Alexandria made a hydraulic system with fire, water and steam and put it in an Alexandrian temple. The ropes would be pulled, which would open the doors. The doors were opened once a day when people came to worship. Before the doors would open, a priest would have to start a fire. This would take several hours. Its main goal was to make people feel mystical and give the impression that God had power. Vending machines. The next time you kick the vending machine in an attempt to free your purchased snack from the mechanical claws, consider how far the vending machine has come. Heron of Alexandria created the first vending machine between the years of 10 and 70 AD. Remember him? He also provided us with automatic doors. One of the greatest experimenters of his time, the ancient Greek mathematician and engineer lived in Alexandria, Roman Egypt. Of course, you would insert a coin for a dose of holy water rather than zingers in the machine's top slot back then. Olympics. The Olympic Games are now an international phenomenon. However, do you know how it got started? A cook named Corobus won the sole competition, a 630 foot, 192 metre foot race known as the Stade, to become the first Olympic champion in history. The games, however, had probably been going on for a long time by that point. On the western Peloponnese Peninsula, Olympia, they were held every 4 years. These historic contests were a component of a religious celebration honouring the god Zeus, thanks in large part to Baron Pierre de Coubertin, who was motivated after visiting the ancient Olympic site. The modern Olympics got underway in 1896. Greece's Athens hosted the very first Olympics in modern times in 43 events, including track and field, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, cycling, tennis, weightlifting, shooting and fencing. There were 280 competitors from 13 different countries. Theatre. People all over the world spend a lot of time having fun by going to a play, movie or musical. But did you know that the ancient Greeks were the first people to make a theatre like we know it today? Around the 6th century BC, Greece had its first dramas. Greek dramatists also wrote plays in different styles like tragedy, comedy and satire. Many of the plays they wrote are still important today and have helped shape Western culture. The Greeks also built theatres that could hold hundreds or even thousands of people. The first computer. The Antikythera mechanism has been called the world's first analog computer. Okay, so it's not the computer you're sitting at right now. This Greek invention was made more than 2,000 years ago. It was found by divers who were looking into shipwreck off the island of Antikythera, which is between Kythera and Crete. It was also made to predict astronomical events like eclipses of the sun or moon. Mechanical clocks weren't made until the 13th century, so this device was incredibly ahead of its time. There are also a lot of interesting museums in Athens, and the National Archaeology Museum where you can see this amazing Greek invention. Cheesecake. I saved the best for last. The ancient Greeks came up with the cheesecake, a tasty dessert that is known all over the world and still enjoyed by millions of people today. Cheesecake was eaten by the ancient Greeks as early as the 5th century BC. They thought it gave them energy and gave it to athletes competing in the first Olympic Games in 776 BC to give them strength. Aegimus, an old Greek doctor, even wrote a book about how to make cheesecake. In 230 AD, the writer Entheus made what is thought to be the oldest known recipe for Greek cheesecake. The cheesecakes were made with cheese, flour, wheat and honey. These tasty treats were served at weddings and may have been given to athletes at the Olympics to give them energy. There's no doubt that the whole of the ancient Greek culture led to things that eventually shaped ancient Western culture. They did very well in many different fields such as arts, science, philosophy, architecture and many others. They also give the world many amazing inventions that people still use today. So the next time you get stuck in an automatic door, your plumbing stops working, or your alarm clock doesn't wake up, you know what to do. Just eat cheesecake and blame it on the Greeks. If you want to learn more about ancient Greece, then give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell icon.